what's up?
Sorry, ready? Yeah. Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. There's been a lot of criticism on George Pickens from that Lions game. How much do you talk to him about body language, all those kinds of things, or you leave that to Shotty?
I mean, I think that you have side conversations with guys whenever you can. But, at the end of the day, I think everybody in the building knows what GP's intentions are, and we know the type of player that he is and the type of teammate that he is. And, I think, of course, you always leave that to the head coach, but I like the guy. And, I appreciate a lot of things that he does. And so anytime that I can try to help him, I'm always going to.
We talked a lot about slow starts. I think last week you scored your first possession. Before that, you had struggled. Can you pinpoint why you haven't just been able to get off to a faster start offensively?
That's a good question. We look pretty heavily into the openers when we're not starting off fast, and you try to find a way to maybe change some stuff up there. Sometimes you go into a game and you can feel on the first drive like, man, this is going to be that type of game. This is going to be really hard today, and we're going to have to try to find a way to win it, maybe not the way that we had planned. I think it's a multitude of things. Sometimes it's the environment. Sometimes it's the plays that we're calling. Sometimes it's, just that type of day. So I think trying to pinpoint which of those it is when you get into a game like that is important. But I think we found really several different things.
Can you simulate some things in practice to say, all right, let's simulate the opening drive, and maybe this can translate to when you get to a live game?
Yeah, we do late in the week, and that's been one of the kind of the fun things for me as a coordinator is to simulate some of those things later in the week after you've built a plan. So you go into the first and second down, you like your normal down and distance stuff, then you install your third down stuff, which is today. Then tomorrow the red zone stuff goes in, and then really the scripting of the Saturday stuff is where that happens, where you're trying to make that script look as game-like as possible. So yeah, we do a lot of that. For whatever reason, there's some games where maybe it doesn't feel like we're very accurate. I've even gone back to that a little bit and gone and looked at, all right, what look did we get on this play in the game versus the look that we gave him in the walkthrough. Sometimes we're on it and it didn't work anyways, and sometimes it's totally different and you're just coming out of the tunnel smoking. So we need to figure out what exactly that recipe is. But, yeah, we're working on all of it.
Clayton, Todd Archer with ESPN, the last 3 games, and they give 44 runs that have gone for 3 yards or less. What's happened to the run game efficiency in your mind?
The efficiency, when we just look at the actual efficiency of it this last game, the efficiency of it actually wasn't bad numbers-wise. Where I think that we've taken a step back, particularly in this pass game, was just explosiveness. There was not really any explosiveness to it at all. And I think that, one of the things that we pinpointed after the Lions game was just finishing blocks. And the last 5% of the play is what we've talked to the players about. Just even like the first play of the game, we pause it when we're watching it with the guys and we say, this is the look we want on this play, and we feel really good about this look, and it's closing up pretty quickly. So we're either not getting through there fast enough, we're not blocking at each position all the way through where we need to get the ball through. Yeah, I think that the explosiveness of the run game, particularly in the Thursday game, was not really what we're looking for. I felt like for a few games before that we were taking steps forward.
You've talked to us before about premier looks, and you have to take advantage of those. Are you getting as many as you got earlier in the season?
We had some on Thursday for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're getting some. I think that that quote, the last 5% of the play, that's where we've got to be better, is the last 5% of the play, and sometimes that's finishing a block, sometimes that's breaking a tackle, sometimes that's blocking on the perimeter, sometimes that's the detach from the quarterback. I mean, there's a million different things that go into it, but that's what I've pinpointed right now is just that last 5%.
John Machado with The Athletic. Brian Schottenheimer talked a little bit after the game about Dak probably taking too many hits in that last game. How do you, I guess, kind of clean that up going against now a defense this week? They'll probably be blitzing a lot.
Yeah, I think, like from a front perspective, that's one of the things that kind of the old sayings is your punishment for not winning first down is that you're going to have to drop back, pass protect a lot in this game. So, part of that is you gotta win on first down to put yourself in position to not be in as many high degree of difficulty situations on the later downs. So that's the biggest part of it. And then the other part of it, and I've said this before, but it's true. If you want to win games that things aren't going exactly how you want them to, which is usually how the really important ones in January go, because you're facing somebody that's really, really good. If you're going to win those tough games, you're going to have to do things that aren't exactly what you want to do, and you're going to have to win games that feel uncomfortable. And Thursday was one of those games for us offensively. Is we're scrapping and clawing and trying to find ways to move it and get first downs, and sometimes having to do things that aren't necessarily within the realm of what we wanted to do going into the game. That's part of it too. Like we just have to freaking do better in those situations as well. So two-part answer there, but I think that's the right one for us.
And then just with the Hard Knocks cameras being around, has it had any impact on you and your coaching, and do you watch the show?
I don't watch anything. It's not the first time I've been around it. I always think that there's two different types of people on Hard Knocks. There's the personalities that start to come out when the camera is around, and then there's the people like me that have to make sure that you don't say anything when the camera's on, because I'll probably get canceled, or I just got to stay away from it.
Nick Harris, Forward Star Telegram. When you're going up against a defense that blitzes at a 47% rate, how does that affect the prep? And is it as simple as just dedicating extra bodies, or what goes more into the prep for game planning?
That's a good question. Just having experience with this coordinator in the past, I think if you just purely look at what he wants to do from a numbers perspective, I think it's easy to say, like, all right, well, this guy just wants to blitz. But it is so game plan oriented. He does a really, really nice job of saying, we are going to make you uncomfortable. And so sometimes I think if you look too hard into the tape with what they do and you're chasing plays too hard and saying, look, for example, if you're just purely a premier looks type of team on offense, I think that you can fall into that trap with these guys, because you may not see any of the stuff that somebody else saw. And so leaning towards your percentages is probably not a great thing when you're playing against this defense, just because you're going to probably know on those first couple of drives, all right, this is what their plan is today, so we're going to kind of lean towards this part of the plan. You have to be ready to adjust. And so sometimes that means they're going to be super aggressive with you. Sometimes that means that they're going to try to back off and make you take kind of small bites underneath and see if they can bleed you out in the run game. And I've seen them win on defense in a lot of different ways over the years. So we'll know early.
And a common theme that Shotty and Dak have talked about after losses this year is red zone issues. Where did you see those against Detroit, and how do you correct those to make sure that they stay for 4 games?
Yeah, really kind of a myriad of issues. We spent a couple of days working on that just because it's such an important part of our game. I don't know that there's just one thing that shows up. One of the things that we've said as a staff is, we got to be probably a little bit more patient with some of the runs as we approach down low. But also, I think you also have to show, when you have the weapons outside that we do, you have to, it's kind of like carrying a gun. Like, everybody's got to know you know how to use it, right? And so I think you have to show, like, we're willing to throw to these dudes down there, and hopefully you can create soft enough situations where you're able to run it in. I thought Shotty did a really nice job on the red zone sequence in the Detroit game. We got up, we ran something we liked. We got, I think, halfway to the goal, which is down there, is efficient, and then he called it again, and we got in. And so things that you do well, I think, are always the starting point. Things that the players like in critical situations, I always lean towards a little bit too. Like, all right, these guys at least think we're good at this. Hopefully I agree with their assessment of that, but I think that in those situations, they want to know we're all on the same page of what we do well.
Ali Jawadi, us Cowboys. Just one more question on the blitz. Dak Prescott's played really well throwing against the blitz. 1,033 yards, 8 touchdowns, 70% completion percentage. Just from tape to seeing it in real time, what is it about Dak against the blitz that's really stood out and allowed him to thrive in those situations?
He's a very seasoned player, and one of the aspects of quarterbacks that are coming into the NFL right now, which I've been around a bunch of different kinds, but one of the things that is really hard for young quarterbacks coming into the NFL is the disconnect between the way you handle pressure in college football and the way that you handle pressure, or you're being asked to handle pressure in the NFL. The way that we typically have done it here in Dallas is relatively old school. He came up in that. And so he's got lots of years of handling pressure in ways that not a lot of guys around the NFL are still doing it. You know, there's a lot of guys that are just going to beat it with their legs, or they're going to, put a ball up in the air. He's got a lot of tools in his belt because he's been doing those different things for a long time. So without going into, down a rabbit hole there, I just think that he knows a lot of different ways of doing it, and he has a really deep understanding of pass protection.
Babe Loffberg, 105.3 The Fan, Cowboys Radio. Clayton, so obviously the ultimate objective is to put the ball in the end zone, but there's all these games within a game, and you guys are number one in terms of fewest 3-and-outs offensively. So do you look at that? Do you take pride in that? Do you emphasize? I know you can't say, hey, we want to make a first down here, but how does that work?
I didn't know that, and I really hadn't probably ever thought about that, because I think that especially if you go into a game and you're struggling, it's all right. Let's get the first down here, right? I think is the old saying of that's how you get, put one foot in front of the other. Let's get the first down. I didn't know about that statistic, but that is something that we talk about, especially if we've gone 3-and-out early in a game. All right, let's see if we can get the first down. But outside of that, probably haven't thought about it a whole bunch.
Minnesota's at the top of the list defensively, so clearly you don't look at that either.
You're saying
right at the top in terms of defense forcing 3-and-outs.
Yeah, I knew that. And some of that is just how bold and aggressive they are early in games, and sometimes showing you stuff that's not on tape. So before teams are getting to adjustments, a lot of their 3-and-outs are coming early, and some of that is shock of like, oh, they're going to do that on first and second down, huh? Because they'll give you really a lot of different looks and formation checks, sometimes stuff that you weren't expecting situationally. But like I said, they do a nice job. They're aggressive. They're going to give you different things.
What do you know about Hamilton, Frank, Joe, and Reynolds?
Say again.
No, we had a little thing going on.
Don't indulge them. It's a music group.
Oh, I know nothing about them. I know something about they were just singing down in the.
Yeah, that's the Happy Hill Choir.
Yeah, sounded pretty good, I thought.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio, 105.3 The Fan. I think some of the things you just talked about with Minnesota's defense with the 3-and-outs may apply to my question. But what makes them so effective in their red zone defense? Because it's not just touchdown percentage, but looking at the numbers, even just the yards per play.
Yeah, I'd say variation of different things that they do, and they're, again, very game plan specific. So there are games where situationally you may have however many drives in the first half, and you don't really know what somebody's doing in the red zone because you scored from the 20 or so. You see this happen sometimes to these against these guys is you don't know exactly what their plan is, and it might be the second half, and it might be a really critical drive in the second half, and you're going, oh man, they're going with this plan, so we need to make sure that we've got X, Y, Z lined up on the next drive or on your second down if you can identify it that quickly. But I do think they play really, really hard into your tendencies, and they lean hard into things that are working. And so, you've seen this in the past where, he's gone into a game with a zero pressures worked early in a game on a younger quarterback, and then it's just bang, 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 bang. He's going to keep calling it. So you got to have answers for whatever they're doing, and then the red zone is where a lot of those things show up.
We got time for two more. We got one from Tommy and then one from Garrett, please.
Tommy Rush, Cowboys.com. You were talking about first down, and Brian mentioned a little bit too. 4.2 yards, your lowest since week 6 on first down. When you watched it back, what in your mind wasn't clicking on first down?
I think that just the way that they play, I felt like I had made some mistakes in my portion of the plan of not doing some of the things that we just do well and trying to kind of create avenues that maybe you're trying to kind of counterpunch what you're seeing on tape rather than just saying, well, we do this good, we're going to do this well, and try to force the issue there. I think that was part of it. I think that, run game wise, like we just need to, like I said, we need to finish blocks a little bit better. I didn't think that we did a great job of that. That was probably the low point for us in the second half of the season. When you watch it on tape, I thought that there just wasn't as much urgency and finish as there had been in some of the other games. That's the difference between a 3-yard run and an 8-yard run. And you get a few of those in the game. It's a little bit different game if you're playing on 1st and 10 in a situation rather than another second down.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Clayton, you were a strong kind of red zone scoring team kind of a little earlier in the season, 1 for 3 against Detroit. Kind of with answers in the red zone, what does that look like, do you think, going forward?
I think, like I was saying before about when we looked at our red zone self-scout, there's several different issues. The number one thing being just execution overall, because it's not like there's just one thing that shows up 4 or 5 times. It's a dropped pass here or a busted protection here or a guy getting beat in this situation or not finishing a block. I mean, it's really been all the way across the spectrum. And so after looking at the red zone, our message to the players is just that we got to execute a little bit better. Some of the times that we had been stopped earlier in the season was like we false started twice, and then you false start on the 3-yard line. That's a huge deal in the red zone. It's a little bit different than false starting on the 50. So that type of stuff, self-inflicted wounds for the most part.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you.